Welcome back to the channel and welcome to Is My Coffee Fresh? So, what do I mean by fresh? So, one thing I've noticed, and one thing if you've been watching our videos on YouTube, is you will have heard me talk about the huge journey that coffee goes on before it gets into your mug. Well, that huge journey makes a significant impact on what this coffee will taste like in your cup. And one of those factors is freshness. For me, freshness can mean one of three things. This video, I am going to go through those 3 points I think make fresh, delicious coffee. So let's dive in. What do I mean by freshness? I mean drinking this cup of coffee when it is at its optimum time for drinking. So you are going to get the best that that coffee has to offer. Unfortunately, a lot of the coffee that the majority of people are buying is probably, in my opinion, stale. It's been sat on a supermarket shelf for God knows how long. There is no specific date on there to say when that coffee has been roasted or when that coffee has been harvested, and unfortunately it's also ground, which makes it stale quicker. And then I would say the majority of us are drinking potentially old, stale coffee. That's not everybody. I'm not saying that everybody is going to be drinking old, stale coffee, but unfortunately the truth is the majority of us probably are. So what do I mean by freshness? So I'm going to start with point number 1. This is the one that I think is the most important part, and that is green raw coffee. Green coffee is what coffee looks like when it comes into our roastery. So this is the raw product that has been picked, has been processed, has been dried to a certain moisture content. It's travelled thousands of miles and it's landed on our doorstep at the roastery. This is a seasonal agricultural product that the majority of countries only have one season for the whole entire year, and I would suggest that you would want to be brewing coffee that is in season. Now, there's a few things to take into consideration. One is the way that coffee is packaged. Now, this makes a massive effect on the freshness and how long it can stay fresh. So personally, I have tasted coffees that have been up to around about 18 months old from harvest, and they have still tasted really bright and fresh and great. So coffee is stored in either a Hessian sack with no other membrane around and just the green coffee in there. This can tend to stale quicker than if it was in what we call a Grain Pro bag or an Eco-Tact bag, or something which is going to protect the coffee from moisture and from all the elements around it. Coffee will be kept in a temperature controlled warehouse, and coffee from being picked to actually being roasted can last up to 18 months. I would probably suggest that you want to be drinking coffee that has been picked and processed within a year. As coffee starts to age, it will take on a woody flavour. So it will degrade over time, and when you analyse coffee or when you cook coffee, you will be able to recognise a flavour which is a flavour that I can only describe as woody, almost like pencil shavings. You get the smell, it smells a bit woody, and then you can actually taste that in the cup. So there's varying levels. So like I said, you have got just a Hessian sack with coffee inside with no membrane protecting it. This can age a lot quicker than if it is being in a Grain Pro bag or in a vac pack. So vac pack coffees would generally tend to keep a lot longer because all the oxygen has been removed in here and it has been packed in a way that could potentially live up to 18 months. So green coffee, in essence, if it is processed well, if it is dried to the right moisture content, if it is packed in packaging that is going to elongate its life and it's stored in a temperature controlled warehouse, you could potentially get 18 months out of that green coffee. Anything after that, it starts to show signs of age. So one question to ask when you are going and buying your coffee from a specialty coffee roaster is, they will normally give you a harvest date on that coffee. So that is number one. Number two part of freshness would be, when is the optimum time to drink my coffee or brew my coffee after it has been roasted? Now, as an industry, as a specialty industry, we sort of give you an idea of, and I think a lot of people say around about 2 weeks after roast is probably an optimum time. So we wanted to put that to the test. We wanted to do a little bit of an experiment. And what we did was we roasted up some 50-gram samples using the Ikawa roaster, which is super consistent in what it does. It allows you to roast the same profile over and over again. And we roasted some batches of coffee that were 2 months after roast, 1 month after roast, 2 weeks, 1 week, 3 days, and 1 day after roast. We cooked it blind. One of our customers, Rod, who bought coffee off us for a long time, came over and joined in the fun as well. We cooked the coffees blind, and all we wanted to do was pick out the coffee that we thought was tasting the best, just to give us an idea if we were all in the same ballpark when it came to after roast, how good the coffee was tasting after roast. So what came out of that experiment is, you'll see 3 of us out of the 4 picked the coffee that was 1 month after roast as the best coffee. To be honest with you, the whole table tasted really great, and it was a difficult one, but the 1 month old coffee just seemed to have that little bit more zing and complexity about it. And I think we all agreed that the 2 month old coffee was just slightly rolling off just a tiny bit. It was still good to drink, but compared to the other cups, you could definitely tell that that one was probably going a little bit older. So we did the experiment just to see what we would pick. We were just really interested. We're always learning, so it's really good to do these exercises. And one thing you'll notice in the specialty industry is that a lot of people will probably give you an ideal optimum time to drink. Now, I hear 2 weeks gets bandied around quite a lot, but I would just say, as long as you're not drinking it fresh out of the roaster, give it a couple of days to settle, then you should be okay for around about 3 months. I would like to say, hopefully you get through that coffee within a month, but if it's sealed, out of direct sunlight, in a sealable bag or in an airtight container, I've had coffees that are over a month old that I've still found to be very pleasant, very delicious. So after roast, as long as you're not leaving it 6 months to a year, you should be at optimum freshness, really. So that's number 2. And then we go into number 3. So number 3 is a little thing that slightly annoys me a little bit, because I see it all over, and it is people advertising, we serve freshly ground coffee. Now, that's okay. I'm glad you're serving freshly ground coffee, and I would always say to people who want to buy really good, delicious coffee, that you probably want to buy it whole bean and grind it fresh before you brew. So take 50 grams or 20 grams, whatever it is for your brewing application, and grind it fresh. But if the first 2 points I've just made from the roasting and the green product, if those 2 are old, if you're freshly grinding coffee that was roasted a year ago and was 3 seasons ago, this end product in this cup is not going to taste very good. So I do agree with grinding fresh, but I also disagree with the way that we advertise freshly ground coffee. I've got freshly ground coffee in my place, and that means I'm giving you a good product. That's not necessarily true if the green coffee is old and it was roasted a year ago, so you've got to be a little bit careful in that. But saying that, I would suggest you always try to grind whole bean before you brew. Yes, it will give you a better quality cup of coffee even if the product is old, but if the fundamentals, the green coffee's old, the roasted coffee was a year ago, you're not going to get a delicious coffee. So that's what I mean by freshness. I hope that has sort of given you shed a little bit of light on what it means to drink a really delicious fresh cup of coffee. And let us know, is the freshness of coffee something you worry about? Is it something you search for? Are you interested when you go into the supermarket? Do you look when that coffee was roasted? I've struggled to find bags of coffee that have given me a season date on when that coffee was harvested. Is it important? I think it's important because the end result speaks for itself, but is that something you think about when you are brewing your coffee?